Jesus went with his disciples into Judah and taught there. At this time, John of the wilderness, who heralded the coming of Jesus, was immersing at Anem, not far from Salem, because there was a plentiful supply of water in that place. A great number of people came to be cleansed in the waters, for John was still free. At this time, there was much disturbance in Shomron, and many soldiers were coming and going, for a false deliverer had arisen and proclaimed himself as Yahweh's anointed. The people were restless, and they were having many rumors, but John had no dealings with any of these things. Yet some said the false deliverer was a follower of John, but this was untrue. The disciples of John came to him and said, "Respected teacher, some time ago you testified concerning a man who came to you on the other side of the river. Now he has started to immerse, and his teachings gather many men to him." And John said, "No man can speak with authority concerning Yahweh without his sanction, but this man I know to be a true messenger and the worthy son." They said, "He also heals." John replied, "No man can heal except through the power of the Holy Spirit, and this man has that power. I have said, I am not Messiah, neither am I any who other men seek. I am the Forerunner sent to herald his coming. The bride belongs to the bridegroom. But he who stands at the bridegroom's right hand to support him is pleased when he hears the words spoken by the bridegroom. That pleasure is now mine, but not for long, for as my star declines, his waxes brighter." John feared no man, and condemned hypocrisy and indifference to the Torah wherever he found it. He was the rod of the poor and unlearned, and the staff to the weak and oppressed. He was incorruptible, and he spoke forthrightly, never hiding anything within his heart, and he condemned wrongdoing wherever it happened. Now John immersed with water, and because of this the priests were against him. But on this matter they could do nothing. However, John had condemned the actions of Herod, who had sinned against his own blood and the Torah, and because of this the people murmured against Herod. Therefore, as these were restless times, and the people were in a mood for revolt, he had John taken and imprisoned. For had there been a rising against Herod at this time, Rome could not have come to his aid. John was imprisoned in a fortress, and this pleased Herod. Herod's wife, Herodias, my bad. For she had long borne ill will towards him. Though Herod had no lawful right to take his brother's wife, the fault was not his alone. Herodias wished with all her heart to rid herself of the condemnations of John, but could not accomplish this because Herod held John in awe. For he was a truly holy man, much beloved by the people. Though John was kept in confinement, Herod often spoke with him and listened to his words. But though they stirred the heart of Herod, he found them difficult to understand. While in prison, doubt stirred in the heart of John, and he sent disciples to Jesus, inquiring whether he felt he was truly Yahweh's anointed, for at this time there was much confusion on the matters. When the disciples came back, their reply puzzled John, for they reported Jesus as saying this, "I am not who you expected, or the deliverer of these people, but the deliverer of all men. Nevertheless, if only another will change the hearts of the people, I shall not be found wanting." But John received wisdom and knew he had not erred. Now, a certain feast day came, and Herod entertained his officials and all the leading men of Galilee. And during the course of the entertainment, his daughter danced for the guests. She so charmed and delighted them that Herod, while under the influence of wine and the urgings of others, being also full of pride at their applause, swore to grant her any boon, whatever it was. The girl withdrew to consult her mother, who told her to request the head of John the Baptist. Though the request greatly upset Herod and sobered him because he realized the extent of his folly, he himself could not break an oath of this sort made in the presence of his guests. The oath sworn was a kingly one, but Herod was not a sovereign. Therefore he put it to one of the guests, a learned man, as to whether anything he wished to do would have force within the Torah, or whether he could only be bound by an oath made within the Torah. The man replied that even kings were bound by the Torah, and though Herod was less than a sovereign, he had sworn a sovereignly oath, which, if broken, would confirm his lack of sovereign authority. However, he said that John, being a lawbreaker, could not be protected by the Torah, and so the oath made by Herod stood. So on the morrow, the head of John was struck off and displayed at the gate. So it was that John was put to death because Herod feared his influence over the people. He declared the coming of a new kingdom, and Herod feared the day of deliverance. John had said, "I have been sent with many powers. I am with you to point out the way of the Torah. I herald the deliverer and the kingdom of Elohim." John had taught his disciples to pray in this manner: "Holy be the name of Yahweh, in the places he created to serve his will. Let the coming of the new reign under the rule of Elohim not be delayed beyond our days, but come in the time which is at hand." When the followers of John heard what had happened, they took charge of the body of John, laid it in the tomb by the river. There was a loud outcry from the people, who said, "Why should our prophets be treated in this manner? Where is the deliverer?" Later, when Jesus returned to the river, he found 2 followers of John and took them to a place of safety.